If Minecraft Championships was an anime, these two would be the main characters, the protagonists. You already know who they are, and that's why they're the protagonist. But protagonist is a funny word, because a protagonist isn't necessarily a hero. A protagonist is quite literally defined as the main character of a story. They don't have to be the good guy, but more often than not, they are. And even when they aren't, the mere fact that they're the main character alone makes people want to view their actions as justified. If you want proof, just watch literally every YouTube video about how Thanos is in the right in Avengers Infinity War. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. Now, that's not to imply that Techno and Dream aren't great guys. They are. I wouldn't have released 2 whole video essays on them if they weren't. But that is to say that their audiences are some of the largest in the entire tournament, and as such, they are assumed by default to be both main characters and heroes by those same audiences. And while it's undeniable that Techno, Dream, and their respective squads are the protagonists simply because their audiences are the largest, what is up for debate is whether or not they're the real heroes of MCC. Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, defines a hero as a real person who, in the face of danger, combats adversity through feats of ingenuity, courage, or strength. Now, MCC has plenty of heroes. In fact, I'd argue that every player brave enough to set foot in the Decision Dome and even play in the tournament under the pressure it brings is a hero, because the title of hero is really subjective in this case. It's something that you'll implicitly bestow to the content creators you support and root for. But because you get to pick who the hero of MCC is, that means that the hero doesn't necessarily need to be a protagonist. As a matter of fact, to me at least, the triumphs of a hero are only made exponentially more empowering if they aren't. And that was the case in MCC number 9. Because there's 2 sides to every story. And to me, this tournament is the time when I most clearly saw that other side. In MCC 9, Sapnap, GeorgeNotFound, Curtsy, and the _Eret entered into the Dodgeball Arena in 2nd place overall. With Dream, TommyInnit, Tubbo, Wilbur, Soot, and hundreds of thousands of viewers cheering them on, they fought valiantly to finish Sapnap and George's character arc of winning an MCC just like Dream himself had done one tournament prior, to prove just how far the whole Dream team had really come since their humble beginnings. Only for that arc to be broken by the team with the highest coin total going into Dodgeball, the Blue Bats.
Oh, nice try.
An innumerable horde of stans on Twitter were left despondent that their poor Goggy had lost. Chat spammed their condolences and raised the Green Guardians to trending on Twitter. It was very White Peepo sad. But while that was happening, in an entirely different corner of the MCC universe, on a vastly less popular set of streams, the Blue Bats were absolutely ecstatic.
Yes! Let's go! Let's go! Give me that!
We want it!
Woo!
It feels good to be alive, guys! Let's go!
See, the thing is, nobody really watches any anime for the main characters, for the protagonists alone. Sure, it's cool to watch them power up and team up, but any good saga wouldn't be good without a good cast of side characters. Without them, we wouldn't have an MCC at all. So yes, MCC has protagonists. It has main characters, and that's inevitable. Some streamers are just going to be more popular than others. And yes, MCC has its heroes too, but once again, hero just comes down to your perspective. Whichever content creator you support is going to be the hero of their own MCC saga, and that's perfectly fine. So the Blue Bats may not have been your heroes of MCC number 9, but they were mine. Because the story of the Blue Bats is the story of a team that never believed they'd get their turn to be heroes. They weren't just happy because they won, they were just happy to be there. All of them. The Blue Bats weren't the protagonists, no. But they were the heroes of this MCC, at least to me, and they deserve the win, at least to me, because, again, hero is subjective. From the perspective of every other team in the tournament for MCC number 9, every event I mention in this video will invariably vary in its significance. But the significance of these events to the Blue Bats cannot be understated, yet I feel compelled to try anyways. Because there will never be another team like the Blue Bats of Minecraft Championships 9. Fruitberries is a Minecraft player who, at the time of writing, is currently ranked 12th worldwide in pre-1.9 Minecraft speedrunning, after his stellar debut in MCC number 6 where Fruit himself came in 5th individually and his team clutched up in Dodgeball to take 1st place. Fruit entered into a very brief drought in MCC number 7, with his team finishing in 6th overall and Fruit coming in 4th individually. The following Minecraft Championship, Fruit took a bit of a hiatus, and that was probably the best time to take one because MCC 8 is the now infamous tournament where Dream and Technoblade teamed up, only to become divided again for their equally infamous duel. So when Fruitberries returned for MCC number 9, with Dream and Techno pitted against each other once again, he meant business. Fruitberries actually has some history with our protagonist. He had trained Techno extensively in 1.16 PvP for the duel. Keeping our MCC as an anime analogy in line, Fruit is probably the closest thing the Blue Bats had to a main character. He served the role of sensei, training our protagonists and helping them during their most pivotal arcs. And to the untrained eye, to the uneducated and unlearned, that's all he is. A player who, after an initial strong start in his first MCC, faded back into obscurity. Someone who was better suited to teach rather than do. But what always gets forgotten about teachers is that to gain their wisdom, they first had to learn themselves. Fruit was determined to prove that he not only still had it, but that he never lost it. And prove it he did, not only keeping pace with Dream's legendary times on the MCC8 parkour training map, but also being the only player to actually kill Dream in his challenging 25 YouTubers to a fight for $5,000 video. When he trained Techno for his fight with Dream, Fruit reaped the rewards himself as it gave him an excuse to train right alongside his apprentice and gain more practice. His efforts weren't going unnoticed either. More and more people began thinking that Fruit was destined for greatness this time around, as he seemed poised to come roaring back into the tournament after a short depression in MCC7. He was destined for greatness, that is, just so we're clear, but perhaps most critically, although Fruit sought to prove that he wasn't just the guy who trained Technoblade to fight Dream, because hey, that's all I knew him as at first too. His most important role in the MCC9 Blue Bats was actually as a trainer to the next two players. I started watching Hermitcraft in the very early spring of 2019, so early that there was still snow on the ground, and when I did, Ren Dog and Falsesymmetry were two of the first hermits that I watched. Back then, during Season 6, Ren and False were actually neighbors on the server, sharing an area in the fantasy district that Ren had dubbed the Dragon Gorge. It's hard to understate how influential both of their building styles have been on me. Ren's Sugar Dragon Farm statues, Tomato Yoshi's Dojo, the Floating Island, the Hippie Caravan, and Organic Farms are all tremendously creative builds which were tremendously inspiring to me. And of course, right next door and across from the giant crumpled mass of dragon bones, there's False's purple domed city with the massive custom trees and mushrooms, not to mention the nearby cathedral and end portal room. Ren and False are some of the best builders the server has to offer, right up there with Grian, Scar, B-Dubs, Corrales, and Cub, and their abilities certainly hasn't waned at all going into Season 7 of Hermitcraft, with Ren terraforming an entire mesa to build Vader's fortress to resurrect the cow, and False creating a massive futuristic city built into a pit that extends down to bedrock. There's no doubt about it, they're great hermits, capable of creating works of great beauty. But being a great hermit doesn't prepare you for the Minecraft Championships. Ren and False made their MCC debut in MCC4, and although their teammates have changed, mostly rotating between Cubfan, Green, and Pearlescent Moon, they've been together for every MCC since their first. But during those 5 tournaments leading up to MCC number 9, they never made it above 6th place. They constantly floated around the bottom of the leaderboard, playing for fun, trying to have fun, as every week their hopes of ever standing in the hallowed halls of victory diminished before their very eyes. The hermits were constantly doubted and overlooked and slept on by every team tier list maker on Reddit and every casual fan on Twitter. The hermits, as they were colloquially referred to, were easy kills, easy points, nothing more than cannon fodder to keep the tournament going.
Oh, we're going against Team Hermitcraft.
Oh, that's an easy dub.
Sooner or later, someone was going to get sick of that. But it wasn't going to be the hermits. When the MCC 9 rosters dropped, most people overlooked the Blue Bats simply because they thought the hermits would drag the team down. Only 2 people saw what the others didn't. Only 2 people never counted them out and never quit on them. Only 2 people were crazy enough to realize that their team being discarded and discounted wasn't a curse, but a blessing in disguise, an opportunity to fly under the radar of the other MCC teams. The first of which was Fruitberries. The second was H-Bomb. Oh, wait, never mind. He just did that one meme on Twitter and said that people should just call him H, so let me just quickly replace every H-Bomb in the script with just the letter H. Hold on. Now you get it, Control H, because it's like the command you use in Google Docs to find and replace words, but it's also the letter associated with H-Bomb's name. Never mind, you get it. You get the joke, whatever. I don't care. If Fruit is the closest thing the Blue Bats had to a hero, then H is the closest thing they had to a villain. Not because he's a bad guy, not at all. He's quite literally the opposite. It was just because he was good. During MCC7, Technoblade was faced with an unfortunate reality. This tournament would most likely be the last time he would play with both Wilbur and Filza. His arc was for them to go out on top, and he said as much. But that arc was broken by H, who 1v2'd the final 2 remaining orange Ocelots to clutch his second ever MCC championship. So when Techno found himself in a similar situation in MCC number 8, with himself already out and H sizing down a 1v2, he immediately flashed back to the tragic defeat he had suffered last time around. This time, though, he had Dream by his side, who managed to take out H at the last possible second. So from the point of view of the protagonist, It's the perfect anime arc. The hero had to team up with his rival to defeat a greater threat and ensure vengeance for his fallen friends. But if there's one thing I hope you've realized so far, it's that there's two sides to every story. Everybody knows how Dream and Techno reacted to their win in MCC 8.
Thank you, Dream! Thank you, Dream!
But what I, at least, didn't know was how H had reacted. And when I did, well, it provided a context that I hadn't appreciated before.
Nice miss one. Oh, unlucky. Nice try, guys. Nice try. Oh, man. The prophecy came true.
Oh, literally
so close.
almost so close. We had such a lead on them.
Oh, man.
GG's, guys.
GG's. GG. We deserve that win.
H knew he could have done better because he had done better before, just one tournament prior, in MCC 7, when he'd won. Because while Techno had everything riding on MCC number 7, H had a lot riding on MCC number 8. He was finally teamed with both F-Whip and Quig at the same time. Previously, he'd come in first playing with both of them, alone, but now with the trio united, they stood a better chance than ever at making it to Dodgeball. The Aqua Axolotls of MCC 8 was one of H's strongest teams, evidenced by how rapidly they rose up the tournament ranks by adeptly choosing games that would multiply their coin totals and ensure them an insurmountable lead, one that followed them into the arena but not out of it, because their massive lead in coins prior to Dodgeball didn't matter when they lost. H wasn't actually the villain of Techno's story any more than Techno was the villain of his. They aren't enemies, they aren't even anywhere remotely close to being enemies. Their paths just crossed at an unfortunate time, and unfortunately led to Techno's team doing the same thing to H that H's team had done to Techno before. In MCC number 7, Techno lost his last tournament with one of his favorite teams to H. In MCC number 8, H-Bomb did the same thing, only he lost to Techno this time. What stood out to me the most was H's immediate reaction being shot, and how endearingly human it was, because he placed all of the blame on himself. He clutched a 1v2 before, he'd won an MCC before, so to lose then was because he and he alone failed. H beat himself up for it, not his teammates. And it was that quality that made him the perfect leader for the Blue Bats in the following tournament. Because if H was going to put all the pressure on himself anyways, then he might as well take the pressure off of his friends at the same time. In Dale Carnegie's legendary book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, the most important of Carnegie's teachings for handling social situations are, according to Carnegie himself, number 1, don't criticize, condemn, or complain, and number 2, give honest and sincere appreciation. In MCC 9, H implements those strategies brilliantly all throughout the tournament. Every time the Hermits or Fruit misstepped or blundered or fell down, H was there to pick them back up and cheer them on. And every time they performed well, or even just slightly better than they had before, H was there to give his sincere and genuine support for them. The point is, H stepped forward as a leader in MCC number 9 like he never had before, because the rest of his team was counting on him to. You had Fruit, a great player returning from a hiatus in dire need of motivation, and then there was Ren and False, who had already counted themselves out and desperately needed someone to believe in them before they could believe in themselves. But although the Hermits would deny this accusation, H needed his team as much as they needed him. After losing MCC number 8, the Blue Bats provided the perfect environment for H to survive, thrive, and most importantly, lead. Their team benefited from the Hermit blind spot, meaning that since people assumed the Hermits would drag the whole team down, the pressure was off of everyone. And in a low-pressure environment, where no one expected they could win, H knew that it would be infinitely easier to defy and subvert those expectations. When MCC number 9's teams were announced, H didn't release a speculation video, unlike how he had for MCC number 8, because he was already training. Not just himself, but his team. While each player was honing their skills individually, H ensured that the whole team logged practice hours together to establish a good group dynamic and good team cohesion. All the while, H and Fruit worked up their enthusiasm for MCC to a fever pitch, and elevated Ren and False's level of enthusiasm too. Their training wasn't just to help them gain practice, it was to help them gain confidence, something that the Hermits were desperately lacking. The day of the tournament finally came. The bridge extended outward, and the doors to the Decision Dome opened, and when they did, the Blue Bats were ready. Probably more ready than they knew, but the circumstances that ensured their victory were already set in motion. Since MCC number 8, H had become a better leader, Fruit had become a better player, and most importantly, Ren and False had begun to see a glimmer of hope. The confidence of their teammates had inspired them to believe that there was finally a chance that they could finally do well. That chance was slim, but it was there, and it hadn't been there before. And it kept all of them going when every obstacle in their path seemed cast out upon their goal. But the Blue Bats persevered. The first 4 games of MCC 9 seemed to go the same way for the Blue Bats. They wanted a game, they got it, thanks to the providence of the Decision Dome, yet they failed to put out a truly explosive performance in any of the games that they were hoping for. In round 1, they wanted to try out Sky Battle, getting the new game out of the way early on.
Alright, let's go Sky Battle. Here we go.
It's time!
And although they won the first of the 3 games in the new format, they wound up in 3rd overall.
We won! We won!
Won it!
Let's go! We didn't even lose a player!
In round 2, the Bats cast their chicken eggs in favor of to get to the other side.
To get to the other side.
Let's do to get to the other side.
Fruit's practice started showing here, as he won Game 4 and took 3rd in Game 6, but the team as a whole finished in 5th overall. In round 3, Parkour, Fruit wound up stuck on the hanging pipe stage like pretty much everyone else, which narrowly moved the team up to 4th. And in round 4, after Ren tactically deployed a Mega Chicken for Hole in the Wall, the whole team performed well enough to earn 2nd place in coins for that game alone. Things got harder from there. In round 5, Technoblade dominated the community takeover through the power of protagonism and the Flood of Scott selected Battle Box, a PvP-intensive game. In the preliminary games prior to Dodgeball, this game was the biggest test for the Blue Bats. PvP was a section where the Hermits were particularly lacking in confidence, and how they handled the outcome of this game would determine the rest of the tournament. The Blue Bats lost 4 of 9 games, one of which was to the Green Guardians. After their underwhelming performance and a series of brutal losses, even Fruit was starting to feel slightly downtrodden. Things were looking bleak, and the call had quieted down. Hope was fading before their very eyes. Until H spoke up. He put the entire team on his back.
Let's go, guys! We did so good!
Nice, we secured 4th on that one.
Yeah!
Nice.
Let's go!
That's pretty good.
That slight boost in motivation was all the Blue Bats needed to carry them into the 6th game, Ace Race. The Decision Dome couldn't have picked this game mode at a better time for the Blue Bats, as Fruit's proficiency in it raised morale even further once he finished in 2nd, right behind the legendary Pizza Hut. Overall, the Blue Bats tied in total coins for Game 6 alone, and things were finally looking on the up again. Once again, they were starting to build a bit of momentum. And they were going to need it, because Game 7 brought with it the only game that the Bats were actively trying to avoid. Survival games. Survival games posed a similar challenge to Battlebox in terms of a test of the Blue Bats' confidence. But this time, with H preemptively rallying everyone to call as hard as he could, and Fruit's confidence soaring again after Ace Race, they were ready. With seconds before the barriers lowered and their platforms opened up, H made the call.
What I saw from the testers, none of them went, or the player that did it didn't go for a minute, and he had so much food. They just went for the border and grabbed all the chests around there before the border. Yeah.
I think we should run through the wheat field and get on that diagonal.
In that moment, as the others echoed agreement for a strategic decision, H could only wonder if he was right. He was, in the right, that is, just so we're clear. Game 7 catapulted the Bats into the lead spectacularly, with 7,000 coins accumulated overall. Because they'd skirted around the edges of the board at first and kept their whole team alive, they gained guaranteed survival points, a factor which was instrumental to their victory. As they moved in, staying ahead of the guaranteed ring of death behind them, Fruit had a keen eye for spotting teams that were already divided and weak after earlier fights, giving the Bats the opportunity to clean up and ensure even more points. The result baffled and astounded their competitors. Suddenly, a brand new team had invaded the top 2, and it was the Hermits.
Let's go! Look how many coins we got!
Lead!
Yes!
Look at that!
In Game 8, Sands of Time, Ren kept the team informed on their sand situation. The Blue Bats made the smart call, banking early at nearly 4,000 coins composite. It wasn't nearly enough to win the game, but they had accurately intuited that their lead from survival games would be insurmountable, if only they amassed enough coins during Sands of Time to ensure that they placed in the top 2. And they did. Placed in the top 2, that is, just so we're clear. The final scores flashed across the screen, with the Blue Bats in 1st place overall. For Ren and False, this was a shock. They still hadn't really processed that they were finally winning for once.
We were gonna be in 1st. No, we're gonna be in 1st overall. That's what I mean.
Oh yeah, by far.
Let's
was gonna
go.
say.
We are your #1 team.
Ooh, nice.
And as the entire crew descended into the Dodgeball arena, H made sure the morale was kept at a high.
Regardless of who wins, there are 2 brand new winners to MCC. Let's go, guys.
To me, H enthusiastically relaying to his team that either way 2 new contenders would win the Minecraft Championship is very indicative of the mindset the Blue Bats had adopted since the very start. They were just glad to be there, and by there I don't mean on the Dodgeball floor. They were just glad to be in the tournament, grateful for the opportunity to be a part of something so intricate and thoroughly planned and spectacular, grateful for the opportunity to entertain and provide whatever small solace they could to a chaotic world in a trying time. And later, once the arena goes quiet and they finally won, Ren even says as much. But we're not there yet, because before the Blue Bats win, they first have to lose. Round 1 starts and Ren, Fruit, and H are mowed down by the Green Guardians before they can even blink. H takes out Curtsy before he goes, meaning that it's just Falsesymmetry in a 1v3. She fights valiantly, thinning the herd until it's a 1v1 between herself and Aerith.
I like those movements. I like these movements, False.
Nice!
Let's go. They don't like those movements, though.
No!
Shoot. Dodge.
Take it when you want it.
Just shoot. It's not working. Yeah, she's going left. She's literally going left.
Oh my god, what is wrong with us? Okay, you know what? I've had enough of this! You are dead! What? What is wrong with me?
But by the very end of their duel, Aerith has 2 arrows and time to kill, so he eventually gets the kill on False. It's here where H's leadership really starts to shine. He draws heavily on the concepts of Dale Carnegie mentioned earlier, channeling his energy into a beacon of encouragement for False. If she misses a shot, that's okay. H is still there, keeping the energy in the call high and offering his own advice. There was this really sweet moment where, at one point, H asked False how she was feeling and what exactly she wanted him to scream when she clutched the 1v3. I couldn't find a clip of it, regrettably, but it still serves as an excellent example and anecdote of how Fruit and H were dedicated to bolstering their teammates' confidence and morale throughout the entirety of the tournament. Aerith doesn't make the same mistake twice and kills False right away, because although she didn't win the round and clutch the 1v3, she'd more than proved herself as a capable player to the Green Guardians. Suddenly, the Blue Bats were emerging from the Hermit blind spot. Ren and H fall soon after, leaving yet another Blue Bat stuck in a hopeless 1v3. Only this time, it's Fruit. Once again, Fruit is starting to feel the pressure himself, and once again, H is there, screaming encouragement from the sidelines. Fruit takes a minute to collect himself. To the watching eyes of the arena, it looks for all the world like the match has come to a halt.
Contemplating his life. He's just like having a fucking catatonic moment. Oh, he's back.
Oh my god.
But while the audience has pronounced the game legally dead, the Blue Bats Discord call has never been more alive. Every player on the call knows the importance of this match. They've yet again been thrust into another unwinnable 1v3, only this time, if they lose, the stakes are only going to get higher. They'll be down 0-2, 1 round away from elimination. As Fruit sizes up his options, H makes a very interesting decision. Rather than acknowledging what everyone already knows, the importance of this match, he instead takes the pressure off of Fruit, telling him that he shouldn't stress about it.
Josh, 1v3 this, let's go!
Oh, baby.
Hey Josh, you're not expected to win this. There's 0 pressure on you, let's go.
How long?
Essentially, by preemptively introducing the possibility that they could lose round 2 of Dodgeball to his team, H alleviated their stresses about the current round's outcome. However, because the Blue Bats were no longer worried about winning round 2 since they'd already accepted the possibility of defeat, that meant their stresses had all been transferred from round 2 to the next round, round 3. If they weren't careful, placing all their hopes on a round 3 rally and reverse sweep could very well be their downfall. Round 2 ends up with the Green Guardians 2-0. At the time, things had never looked worse for the Blue Bats. But in retrospect, they had never looked better. By winning survival games, they had forced everyone in the tournament and everyone watching to reckon with the fact that they could seriously win the championship. But now that they were down by 2, they were right back where they started from. Everyone was prepared to write the loss of the Blue Bats off as a fluke in the long and sordid history of Hermitcraft teams. But H-Bomb wasn't, because now the Blue Bats were the underdogs again. No one had even expected them to make it to the final, but against insurmountable odds, they had. And now that it seemed certain that they were going to lose the final, they were ready to upset everyone and do the impossible again. H had already put the entire team on his back in the aftermath of Game 5. But now, he starts running. Once again, False is the first one out. Even though they're so close to victory, the Guardians still aren't going to be taking any chances when it comes to the Hermit who had already proved herself. It's too bad they didn't focus on Ren soon after like they did before. The Hermitcrafter in MCC with arguably the least PvP experience had, up to this point, been nothing more than easy points for the Green Guardians during Dodgeball. But as Ren picks up his first arrow of the game and reluctantly targets George, what nobody could have predicted was that he was about to hit his only shot of the tournament, and irreversibly turn the tides in the favor of the Blue Bats. Immediately after he hits his shot, H pops off.
Nice.
Ren?
Got it!
What's up with you? Yeah. What's up with you guys? Let's go!
Give me that.
Let's make things interesting! Reverse sweep! Let's go!
His words roused something within his teammates. The sparks of H's optimism and confidence light the fires of hope within the spirits of the Blue Bats once more. Even if they don't win, they're resolved to put on one hell of a show. They're going to make it interesting. Suddenly, the Blue Bats are a flurry of excitement. 4 rounds is 4 more than either False or Ren expected to make it, and that fact alone keeps driving them forward. The whole team is suddenly communicating on an entirely new level, talking and sharing words of encouragement with one another.
Got him.
Nice. Huge.
Got him.
Huge! Massive!
Nice!
And suddenly, H isn't alone anymore. He's carried the team, motivationally speaking, for long enough. Now, they're all running together. H and Fruit hit their shots this round, trading advice to each other to stay sharp, and at the very end, GeorgeNotFound is the last man standing.
No! No!
And all of a sudden, it's 2-2. Tie game. The Blue Bats have taken it all the way down to the wire. They've given the Green Guardians a fight that they had to work for to win. And now, it's all up for grabs. One final push for victory. Shots are traded on the field, and suddenly H finds himself in a very familiar position. It's a 1v3. Only his team is the 3. H is the first to go, and just like Techno and MCC 8, he's forced to watch as his 2 remaining teammates stare down their opponent. And just like Techno, when his team's smiley green boy hits his shots, H explodes.
Yes! Let's go! Let's go! Give me that!
We won it!
Woo!
It feels good to be alive, guys. Let's go.
In MCC number 7, Techno lost his last tournament with one of his favorite teams. In MCC 8, H-Bomb did the same. In MCC 8, Techno teamed up with an unlikely green ally for vengeance, and now in MCC 9, H had just done the same. Those parallels were lost on the Blue Bats, though. They were too busy celebrating their victory, hands off their keyboards, their in-game avatars frozen in a combination of shock and joy. When MCC 9 ended, the Blue Bats weren't trending on Twitter, but inside of the event itself, even those who were rooting for their friends on the Green Guardians recognized the monumental occasion that was upon them.
I'm proud of the hermits. I'm so proud.
The hermits had won. In the long and sordid history of the anime that is MCC, the title of protagonist has more or less been set in stone. It's awarded to the most popular player because their popularity dictates that they're inherently going to be the main character to a lot of their viewers. But to be a hero is something else. To be a hero, you have to achieve and struggle against great adversity to overcome it. I would argue that the Hermits were already the real heroes of MCC, even before they won the 9th tournament, because they turned up time and time again, expecting to always lose and never win, but they still turned up. That is, in of itself, an incredible act of nobility, of quiet resignation, and what makes it even more incredible to me is that 2 people came along who were both able and willing to show them that they didn't have to be quietly resigned to losing, that they could win. Of all the people in MCC, of all the fans watching at home, Fruit and H were the happiest for the Hermits, because in winning, they hadn't just won the tournament, they had won confidence, experience. The great Hermitcraft drought had been broken, shattered, and it had been done by 4 people who couldn't have been more supportive of their competitors and of each other. I don't know, I guess it's just... Wholesome is kind of a cringy word to me, but wholesome is the word I'm looking for to describe their dynamic. Either way, the MCC 9 Blue Bats were really something special. They were a team that was never expected to win. They themselves never expected to win, but they did anyways. And they did it together, in an exhibition of awe-inspiring hard work and resolve that is, frankly, inspiring to me. I know I already said this before, but they were just glad to be here, and they deserve to win. Because there will never be another MCC team like the Blue Bats. So if the Hermits start placing higher in MCC after this, or start winning more tournaments, I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't count them out. Because if there's one thing that anyone can take away from this video, is that you should never count out the underdog.
We have been wanting to get into that dodgeball pit the whole year.
Oh, no, I don't want to hear about getting to dodgeball. We're winning dodgeball. Get out of here with that.
We're desperate to get in there.
I told you guys the prophecy. False is going to carry us in dodgeball. Never a doubt.
Don't understand. You got no fear of the underdog. That's why you will not survive. Right?
What is up, guys? I'm Frostbyte Freeman, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I know this is kind of a departure from the last 2 video essays, which are on the quote-unquote protagonist of MCC, more or less, but I really like this team, okay? And I wanted to talk about why. I know the anime analogy isn't perfect, it's just a super hyperbolic framing device I used to present the subject of this video in an entirely new light. Just remember, everyone, nothing I've said in this video is actually all that dramatic. There's no bad guys in MCC, no villains, because they're all good guys. They're all the heroes in their own ways for their own unique reasons. It's all just a video game. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure the Blue Bats themselves will tell you that. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed it. The ending of this was super crazy because I finished writing this video well before MCC 10, and then, you know, Falsesymmetry Supremacy happened, and the Orange Ocelots won MCC number 10, so I just think it's kind of crazy that I called the Great Hermit Golden Age happening, you know, before it actually happened. Yeah, can we get some Hermit Supremacies down in the chat? But anyways, I really do hope you enjoyed this video, melodramatic, over-exaggerated, and embellished though it may be. If you did, please be sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more like this, then hit that subscribe button. And hey, maybe tell me about your own personal MCC heroes in the comments down below. But that's going to do it for this one. I'm Frostbyte Freeman, and until next time, stay frosty.